Pardon?
Apologies, give me 1 second to sort out the echo.
Okay.
Members and officials of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, it is now 11 minutes past 9. Apologies for the delay. We are live and we are recording, so we can start the first agenda of the day, which is the election of the chairperson in accordance with Standing Rule 82.1. Are there any nominations? Member Bosman?
I was almost going to nominate myself, but I don't want to do that. I've got too much work. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Chair, I'd like to nominate Honourable Botha, who's joining us online.
You noted. I see Member Maseko.
Good morning, everyone, and I second the nomination of Member Bosman.
Thank you, Member Maseko. Are there any further nominations? I do not see any more hands. Therefore, Member Botha, you are duly elected as the chairperson. Congratulations. You may proceed.
Good morning, everybody. I trust and hope that I am audible. My voice is a bit groggy. I have a bad spell of flu, so I'm hoping that you do hear me. In regard to the rules of engagement for the virtual platform, I'm not going to go through all the rules once more. We have been doing this for quite some time, and I trust that we are in light with the rules that stands. I just want to render an apology for Member Klejo. Member Maseko is no longer, because she is attending. Thank you, Member Maseko, for attending. And I'm not sure whether there is any apologies from the officials.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, it's just an apology from the Secretary, Mr. Adams. They are en route to CPC in Halifax. I have been appointed as the acting secretary and will represent him in that fashion today.
Thank you very much. So in regard to our agenda for today, we will then pause in the chamber for now to go and do the walkabout as indicated on the agenda. I want to just check in regard to doing this walkabout, what is the time duration for it, or can I propose a time duration for it? Nobody talking?
Sorry, Mr. Naidu, can you maybe guide us on how long the walkabout would take?
Thank you, Chair. The walkabout will be approximately a half an hour.
Okay.
Because we only be walking the WCPP floors. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Naidu. Then we will resume in the chamber and on the virtual platform for our engagement at 10:45. Thank you very much. Ms. Adams. Member Maseko, your hand is raised. Member Maseko. Ms. Adams, there's just a bad echo on this virtual platform. If IT can look at it for us whilst the walkabout takes place.
Chairperson, I'll ask them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We will resume at 1:45. Yet. Just for the record, if everybody can introduce themselves, I'm going to start with the members. If you can just take off the presentations along, and then with all the staff, and then speaker, I'll give you 2 minutes just for some opening remarks. Members?
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, colleagues. I'm Gillian Bosman.
Morning, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues. I am Christopher Fry.
WCPP staff?
Madam Chairperson, congratulations and look forward to working with you and the committee. Good morning to the honorable members, the Deputy Speaker, the Acting Secretary, Ms. Fouchier, and the SMT and the managers, and of course the staff of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and all our stakeholders present. Madam Chairperson, I want to thank you firstly for joining us as a committee during this walkabout. It was requested by the Standing Committee. That is immediately after the fires in the National Assembly. And it became necessary that we do not sleep on duty. And the Standing Committee said to the Speaker and to the institution, let us look at our own environment. Are we safe? Are we on the guard in terms of ensuring that we have everything in place should any eventuality arise? So I want to thank the committee for joining the Oversight walkabout. We are here to report, obviously, as we are entrusted to do in terms of the statute, and we look forward to a robust and, of course, frank conversation about our performance as we continue to perform our tasks. And I want to thank Mr. Romeo Adams, the Secretary to Parliament, and the SMT for continuously looking after the resources of the institution and, of course, ensuring that we spend sparingly within the limits of FAMPLA and that we're able to perform our tasks as per the prescripts. And thank you very much. And we're looking forward to a fruitful engagement with the committee, Madam Chairperson, and the honorable members. The Acting Secretary will introduce the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm Sunal Fouchier. I'm with Public Engagement, but at this point in time, representing the Secretary who is currently abroad. I'm going to ask the team to introduce themselves from my right. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and members. I'm Margot Goldstein, Director, Strategy and Institutional Oversight.
Good morning, Chairperson and members. Nicole Peterson, Chief Financial Officer.
Morning, Chairperson and members. Daho Jowdin, Manager, Financial and Management Accounting.
Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Lubabalo Stemele, Director, Parliamentary Support Services.
Good morning, Chair and members. Vernon Titus, Institutional Enablement.
Good morning, Chair. Wayne Naidu, Security and Precinct Management.
Morning, Chairperson and members. Carolyn Prakasa, Manager, People Management.
Good morning, Chairperson, members. My name is Zuki Sandunene, Manager, Plenary Support. Thank you.
Good morning, Andre Leroux, Senior Legal Advisor.
Morning, Chair, members and colleagues. Yanni Ace, Office of the Speaker.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Madoda Mahlushana, Head of Office of the Speaker.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Temba Keswa, Manager, PEO. Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Mario Sassman, Manager, Committee Support. Thank you.
Good morning, Genevieve Eckham, Office of the Secretary.
If I can introduce myself, Beverly Schaefer, Deputy Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Stryker, you on mute. We did not hear you, but we acknowledge you. We saw you. So let's get this show on the road with the first presentation, the quarterly performance report for 2021-2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to indicate that Mr. Skraker will also do a short presentation on the electronic dashboard system, but I'm going to hand over now to Ms. Goldstein.
Thank you, Acting Secretary. Thank you, Chairperson and members. So this is the report for Q4 of 2021-22. It will be the non-financial performance. Chairperson, just in summary, the WCPP had a total of 33 performance indicators for the financial year, of which 27 were due in Q4. 20 of the 27 planned targets were achieved, which is an achievement level of 74% for the quarter. Chairperson, if we look at this slide, it just gives us the breakdown of our performance by program. And what we will see is that whilst we can register achievements in each of our programs, we do have some targets that were not met in some of the programs, specifically program 1, 2, and 3. We now move to the program performance under program 1, governance, leadership, and administration. Of the 9 planned targets, we had achieved 7, and these are the achievements. On the annual member satisfaction survey, we exceeded the expectation where we were expected to achieve at least a level of 80% satisfaction. We achieved 88%. The Office of the Secretary fully complied with all FAMPLA requirements, reporting requirements. In terms of financial management, we produced a report on the progress against the Financial Management Improvement Plan, as well as an inspection report, which is typically issued following an inspection, which is done by our internal control unit, and this was done on annual leave balances for the last financial year. Chairperson, the next slide speaks to our achievement with regard to 3 of our key strategies: the Digitalization Strategic Improvement Plan, the Human Resource Strategy, and the Knowledge Management Strategic Framework, where we had projected to, for the year, to have concluded initiatives approximating 20% of the total strategy implementation. So this is a strategy. All these strategies are implemented over the 5-year term, and the targets that you see here are what would be broken down for the current year. So for 21-22, by Q4, we had in fact rolled out all initiatives as was planned. Then still on program 1, there were 2 targets that we then did not achieve. The first, under the Office of the Speaker, relates to the percentage compliance by the Executive Authority with the prescribed legislative obligations in terms of FAMPLA by the required due date. The issue there was the submission of the IYM, which is essentially a financial report, which was not tabled within the 5 days as prescribed by FAMPLA. Hence, you will see the achievement at 89% instead of 100%. And then for the year 21-22, we realized an achievement level of 76% in terms of the number of APP targets that were reached. So 25 were achieved out of the 33 that were planned. Chairperson, for program 2, the planned targets were 7 in total, and we managed to achieve 5 of them. So for parliamentary support services, we note that by Q4, we had achieved 100% of all ATCs were published within the agreed timeframes as per the standard operating procedures. All committee reports were also produced in line with the standard operating procedures. With regard to Hansard, we continue to engage, and we had engaged also in Q4 the Hansard service provider with regard to obligations in terms of the SLA we have with them. We have also in Q4 secured security support together with the Department of Community Safety with regard to standing committee oversight visits, where we've enabled that. We've also been, as we've discussed earlier, been in constant contact with the Department of Transport and Public Works with regard to issues around maintenance of the building, etc., which is also in terms of the service level agreement which we have with them. So that was concluded for the quarter. Under parliamentary support services, the 2 areas that we did not achieve are in relation to the digest of rulings. So we compiled a full digest for the year with all the rulings. However, the Q1 rulings were erroneously omitted, and that was distributed and could not be corrected within the quarter. And then the final one where we did not fully achieve was on the percentage compliance with the applicable regulations of the Critical Infrastructure and Protection Act. So the National Key Points Provincial Office had assessed us to be at a level of 97% compliance as opposed to 100% compliance. And they essentially identified 3 areas of weakness. The first area, it's not in the reports, I'll just verbally indicate that the first area was in relation to the size of the Joint Operations Center, which they said may not have sufficient capacity to accommodate all stakeholders in the event that we needed to physically convene. The second is in relation to signage. So signage that designates at the entrances that we are a national key point. And the third one was just in terms of ensuring that the access control at the entrances is secure and that all security provisions are in place. So those were the 3 areas that were highlighted as weaknesses. One of them, at least at this stage, has already been addressed. So you would have seen that the Well Street entrances have been reconfigured and the security is tighter than it has been in the past. On program 3, public engagement, we had 10 indicators and targets, of which we achieved 7. The achievements are in relation to an increase in website statistics. So here we're essentially talking about traffic to the website, where we had targeted to increase for the year by 5%. We've increased by 8.3%. And then also an increase in our social media activities. So this relates to the extent to which we are actually publishing information about and updates about the WCPP activities on the website. In that respect, we've also exceeded the target of 5%. International relations or protocol training briefing sessions. Here you will see we exceeded it quite substantially due to an uptick in the number of international relations events. The rollout of the international relations framework, we had also targeted to produce a report on the rollout by the end of the quarter, which we had done. Then on public education and outreach, we had prepared an annual public education program for the current year, so for 22-23 by Q4, which was the projection. We also undertook various public education initiatives, which would have included workshops, public education workshops, which would have included sector parliaments, etc. So, and then the last one, the number of reports in the implementation of the approved Tetanati program, which relates to outreach. We simply report there on the activities that we undertook in this regard in Q4, which would have been the rollout in the West Coast and Cape Metro districts. Then for public engagement, the areas we did not achieve are in relation to the stakeholder database and digital platform. The issue with the stakeholder database was we couldn't launch it by the Q4 because by the end of the quarter, we were still working with the service provider to ensure that one aspect of the functionality is in fact integrated or embedded, which is the SMS integration. So we were working with MTN to finalize that, and that was not concluded. And then there were also delays in the procurement process for the digital platform. In addition, with regard to implementing a formalized process for dealing with public submissions, we had crafted a proposal for how this can be done. However, it would have needed to go through the rules committee, and there was no rules committee in the year. So it could not be finalized or processed accordingly, and therefore was not achieved. Then in terms of still under public engagement, we'd envisaged that we would expand our strategic partnerships by adding on an additional relationship with a key umbrella stakeholder, the Commission for Higher Education. And the idea was that through the Commission, we would then gain access to universities. However, they did not necessarily agree to partner with us. And we have subsequently embarked on a process, a new strategy, whereby we are now approaching individual institutions directly instead. In fact, we had up towards the end of the quarter, we were concluding an agreement with the University of the Western Cape for the purposes of expanding public engagement activities. And then finally, on member support, we had planned to roll out a number of capacity building and support initiatives. There were 4 types of initiatives. So these would be, for example, certificated courses, the online CPA training, etc. And we had concluded what we had planned in this regard by the 4th quarter. Chairperson, that concludes the report on non-financial performance for quarter 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm taking guidance here, members. Do we pause here to for you to raise questions, or can I continue with the presentation? You hold on to your questions as we go along, and then we will do a big question and answer session at the end of all the presentations. I'm taking guidance from you.
Okay, I'd prefer if we ask questions after each presentation, specifically because this deals with last year's items. So
Okay.
my presentation.
All right, then we shall do so. Any questions then?
Okay, since I have the floor, maybe I can start. Maybe starting with the last slide on the Memorandum of Understanding with Higher Education South Africa. Do we know what their reasons were for not wanting to enter into an agreement with an MOU with Parliament as an organization? What were some of the stumbling blocks? And then I wanted to ask whether the potential individual engagements with universities in the Western Cape, is that going to include capacity building for members and staff as well? I know I applied to study at the University of the Western Cape for a diploma in public management, and part of the rules of Parliament doesn't allow for Parliament to pay the institution directly. So I had to pay upfront, and then you have to claim it back from Parliament. So are we going to institute a similar arrangement that we have with the legislative support sector? Because we currently only have it with WITS and UJ, and the WITS one is completely broken because we haven't even started that one. And then the question on the implementation on the formalized process for dealing with submissions. I'm just trying to understand, has it been referred to the Rules Committee? Because if my understanding is correct, the Rules Committee won't sit unless something is referred to it, or if it's discussing something. So when was this referred to the Rules Committee? And maybe we'll check with I think we need a new chair of rules. Previous deputy chief was the chair. But if we can check, if it's with the Rules Committee, we can then convene the Rules Committee to make that process move faster. And then in terms of the stakeholder database, so it's noted that the digital platform procurement will be fast-tracked and will be concluded in 22-23. Do we know which quarter in 22-23? Is it the first, second, or third? Especially as we are going into the process of annual reports, budgets, as well as key legislation coming to Parliament. And then, Chair, I wanted to ask if we could have the annual education program tabled as well for PAC members. And then I wanted to ask, in terms of scheduling parliamentary activities, so PEO activities, Teta Nati, or engagements with international guests visiting the WCPP, what is the process of scheduling that? So all other parliamentary meetings go through the Programming Authority. I just wanted to check why that doesn't go through the Programming Authority. And Chair, with your guidance, I wanted to check if that's a resolution that we need to make in this meeting to make sure that there's some alignment so that all members can attend some of the PEO events as well, because sometimes, because the program is so tight, it clashes with committee meetings. I know I haven't been able to attend the Teta Nati committee because I had to chair 2 portfolios. And I've heard that it's quite an interesting sort of event to attend. And then if we could also have the international relations framework tabled as well as a document. And then in terms of the targets achieved on website traffic and social media, why are we setting it so low? Because we've just had 2 years of completely virtual engagement, and during the ad hoc committee on COVID-19, we received 17,000 submissions. So there's clearly an appetite for people to interact with Parliament. So maybe we should set that target, instead of sort of it being a 5% target for the quarter, shouldn't it be slightly higher? So that, because if we're doing hybrid Parliament, there should be a concerted sort of effort to get more people tuning into YouTube. And then I wanted to ask also whether there's any conversation, and I know Mr. Shear mentioned this a few meetings ago, around getting our Parliament also broadcast on one of the digital channels. So whether that's Cape Town TV or whether it's, I think it's 408 where the National Assembly is on. And then on with regards to the sort of the two targets that were not met around where it was said there was the administrative oversight in terms of the digest of rulings and in-year monitoring reports. So it says management oversight to be strengthened. Can we get an understanding sort of what is going to be done? What has been identified as sort of the problem with management, and what is the corrective sort of process being put in place so that we don't come at the end of the next quarter and it's the same management oversight to be strengthened. Chair, I think I'll stop there for now.
Thank you very much. Any other members with questions?
Chair, I would like to ask just one question.
So
Question 3
please continue.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question on program 3, public engagement, stakeholder management and communication services. The number of international relations or protocol training or briefing sessions, it was 1, the actual achievement is 6. Coupled to what Member Bosman said about the web traffic, are we lowballing this year or was it just an anomaly? Or are we planning to up that to at least 5, 6 and then stretch the target a bit more? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would also just like to know, going forward, the next report in regard to your indicators not met, would your report look differently? Thank you. That's the round.
Thank you, Chairperson, honorable members. I was just trying to pick up on the question, the first question by Honorable Bosman. Firstly, the Rules Committee is chaired by the Speaker, he is the chairperson of the committee. But I was trying to follow your question there. You'll forgive me if I had part of it and miss the rest. But I'm going to obviously depend on the honorable member to help me. But on the question of Tetanati, you are quite correct, Honorable Bosman, through your chairperson. The program initially, when we started off, there wasn't that much participation by the honorable members. But I must say, if you were to look at the very recent one, it was well attended by the honorable members. Those who indicated they would be there, they were there, with the exception of the few. And of course, it was in the programming authority. As a result, it found its way in the program. It's always been in the program. The only difference has been that, if you could please switch off your mic there so that there's a clarity of my voice. The only difference was that, Honorable Member Gillian, and through you, Chair, and the committee, was that before, there was no synchronization with the program of committees. But now it exists within that whole program of Parliament. So, for instance, we use the period of constituency week. And of course, it made it easier for members to attend. There were some committees that still had some programs because sometimes there's too much business in terms of the committee program, which you can't avoid. But I must say, I thank the honorable members who were with us, including yourself, Madam Chairperson. You attended quite a few in the Cape Winelands district. And that was quite an impressive engagement. I must say, the communities were very much receptive. We've been now to 4 districts, including the metro. So the only ones we need to do is the 3 other districts, and that is the Overberg district and, of course, the Central Karoo. So that is actually 2. We've done 4 districts, with the metro being the other district in terms of our program. The social media engagement, I think the acting accounting officer is more fit to respond to that. Fortunately, she is also the director responsible for this specific unit. The IYM delays. You see, technology is good, but some of the risks of technology is that you have some unforeseeable interventions that, challenges that you might deal with in the last minute in some cases, because everything is done on a paper trail. Ordinarily, there's no details in our system, but when there is, if one person did not sign on time and the other person signs on time, then it delays the entire system. If the speaker signs late, then it delays the presentation of the document. Or if the speaker signs and the email was not pressed with the send button to the last one, then it becomes the problem. But we've got a system that works, I think, very well because we now have digitized signatures. And I don't foresee this happening because we reported that time as well, this issue. Because it has not repeated itself on any of the documents in terms of, that's why when you had the tablings, 100%. Why? Because we learned from that experience. That rather sign 2 days or 3 days before or a week before, instead of waiting for the last minute. So there's no chances for it to happen again because we have to ensure that we comply with all of these things. Lastly, the number of international engagements, I'm going to ask Madam Chairperson, which the question raised by Honorable Fry, that the director, who is fortunately the acting secretary, to deal with that specific matter. But I'm going to ask the Deputy Speaker, if you remind Deputy Speaker to first go in here in terms of dealing with that or come in after Ms. Fouchier. But we are committed to our international engagement policy because we have an international relations policy, which I think every member should be able to look at it and see whether we are happy, are we on course with the international standards, because that is one of the things we said we will do, that will prioritize that area of work in this 6th term of Parliament. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So in terms of answering your question, Member Bosman, there's no sort of set way how the international parliamentarians or parliamentarians from other countries will engage with us. It's usually by email. I know the Chief Whip and I are working on a visit from parliamentarians from Germany at the moment who specifically want to engage with the committees. And we know, and she's aware of that. So I normally would, if there is an email, alert the Chief Whip, and then we will put it together in terms of who would be able to be part of that international visit. So we try and streamline it. Yes, there is an international policy, but in terms of the engagement on visiting parliaments around the world, it's not always set in stone. It's flexible. It comes through either via the Commonwealth Parliament, or it will come specifically via the diplomatic corps, and that's how we generally engage. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Then I will deal with the more administrative matters in terms of the questions asked. The first 2 matters that I would like to deal with is the request for the tabling of the annual program of public engagement and the international relations framework, and we will gladly do so. I'll make sure that it gets to the chair as soon as possible, and in future we will then table it with the committee as soon as it's approved. In terms of the Commission for Higher Education, the reasons provided, so maybe a bit of background, we already have a memorandum of understanding with CPUT. Specifically, they have a paralegal qualification where people come to WCPP, and we also feed into that program. We also have a working relationship with the University of Stellenbosch and with False-Bay College. So that is what prompted us to seek that kind of partnership. The Commission for Higher Education, however, indicated that they are more concerned with academic standards. They are there for monitoring and maintaining curriculums, curriculi, etc. So they would not, it would not be beneficial for us or for them to enter into this kind of partnership, which is why we then started looking at the individual tertiary institutions. At this point in time, capacity building would extend to the students of UWC, looking at internships in WCPP and looking at us doing programs at UWC, mostly in terms of the School of Governance. But Mr. Titus and Mr. Keswa will be in discussion with that. And I'm very sure that we could expand on our partnership as, you know, the partnership gets solidified and strengthened. The speaker dealt with the issue of rules. In terms of the digital online platform, this will be the third time that we start the procurement process. It is already with the bid specifications committee, so we are hoping that the tender itself will go out within August or early September. So we are hoping to finalize the process in the third quarter, but we are also very mindful that we would want a high quality product that meets all our expectations. So that's why we have cancelled or not gone through with the process twice already, because we would rather not have something that would be an embarrassment or not work properly. In terms of Tetanati, yes, it's always referred to the Programming Authority. The 5% increase in website traffic, Honourable Gillian, through you, Chair, is year on year. So the previous year we had an 18% increase of traffic to the website. So this year we're saying 5% on top of the 18. So it says 5% year on year, but our target is actually 23%. So it does go up and up and up. With regards to the streaming of WCPP activities, the Manager of Stakeholder Management and Communication Services is in discussion with his counterpart at National Parliament with regards to streaming of WCPP on Channel 408 in particular. I know that they met in Sierra Leone and had discussions with our delegation there on that as well. And then to answer Honourable Fry's question before I hand over to the Director of Parliamentary Support Services is with regards to the international relations training. We, at the beginning of this financial year, were not necessarily clear on what would happen in terms of the pandemic and regulations pertaining to that. While our international engagements actually increased quite a lot during the pandemic, because we did a lot of things online and we could get more members to participate because there's not a cost implication. We weren't sure as to how many actual international visits we were going to have. So we projected for one, but then when all the restrictions were lifted, we realized that we were going to be able to go have in-person visits to all the CPA conferences, etc., as well as the international study tours. And we do try to do international relations training before each trip to make sure that every single person that goes on an international engagement has undergone the international relations and protocol training. So that is why it's so much in relation to the target. And next year, the target will obviously be higher, considering that it is now, and for the time being, touch wood, open for travel. There was a question from Honourable Bosman to in terms of Programme 2, with regards to the digestive rulings and the management controls that would be implemented to ensure that there isn't a recurrence of that matter. I'm going to ask the Director of Parliamentary Support Services, Mr. Lubabalo Stemele, to please comment on that. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Acting Secretary. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Speaker and members. Chair, the issue of the oversight of what had happened with the digestive ruling was the most unfortunate one, and unfortunately, also as Speaker said, sometimes technology is as good as a person on the other side, and when it is convenient. The officer that was supposed to have sent it out apparently had more than one copies in within her desktop that he had. Despite that, I've already okayed the one, so that was supposed to have gone, but he sent erroneously the wrong one. However, what we have said, because in the previous financial year, we had no manager for plenary. Now it has to go through all steps in terms of the controls that were put in place. It has to go through the whole steps from the officer to the manager to my office, and then it will be sent now that entire digest of rulings from my office. That's what we'll be doing going forward, so that no one can say there was an error in it. Then I can ensure also that there is that management stamp and that higher office within the directorate that has sent it out, and we can take full ownership of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stimbele. Just to add on to that, we have our knowledge management unit has developed a new filing system electronically as well, which will assist us with version control. And then just the last question from the Honourable Chair. These are the targets and achievements for the fourth quarter of the previous financial year. So we won't be reporting on the same targets again, but we will deal shortly with the targets and achievements for quarter one. I hope that answered all the questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any follow-ups?
Chair, we did not answer all questions.
Speaker?
Yes, there's a question, Honourable Chairperson. Your microphone there, Honourable, right? Which I would like Mr. Titus to specifically deal with. It's regarding what Honourable Bosman asked about why vets only when it comes to capacity building. And I thought it was important that Mr. Titus brags a bit about what we do in that space, because we've acknowledged this for the longest time now. There's no need to be dialing around this issue of why vets only, because it just cannot be vets only. I know the Deputy Speaker for some time has been dealing with that issue, because I've asked her to coordinate training for the honourable members and for staff, but Mr. Titus will respond to that with your indulgence, Madam Chairperson and the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Speaker. Just as a direct response to the Honourable Bosman, apart from what the Acting Secretary had mentioned around the initiatives for engagement with institutions of higher learning, we have been in consistent consultation with various bodies within the province. So part of this looked at the Cape Higher Education Consortium, which comprises of all of the universities in the province, CPUT, UCT, UWC, as well as Stellenbosch University, to see to what extent we are able to extend on what it is that we could possibly offer for members and staff through capacity building initiatives. But over and above that, we have now established firmer relationships with UCT's research co-op, and part of that would look at utilizing and expanding on the capacity that we have in the research space, which could directly impact on the nature of the research work that is being conducted within the committees itself. So what we are looking at is to establish firm kind of relationships that can, in fact, support the overall strategic impetus of the WCPP. So we're not only working through WITS and UJ, the programs through LSS and National Parliament through the University of the Witwatersrand and Johannesburg. Those programs are implemented. We know that there are some hiccups with some of them, but by and large, that seems to be running. We've also been in conversation with the ICPS, which is an organization specifically focusing on parliamentary work. And here we have targeted issues around members' needs and training in that particular space. So this is all, Chair, with your indulgence, this is all work in progress. We are earmarking particular issues for members based on the needs that members have identified. We also know that it has become very, very difficult for members to balance the role that members have with capacity building initiatives that we want to roll out. I hope that responds to the question, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Titus. Members, once more, do you have follow-up questions on the responses that you have received?
Yes, Chairperson.
Go ahead.
Chair, I think just commenting on the last point by Mr. Titus, I think it's a good move that we're looking at other options and specifically about also how we use the research within Parliament. I know when I chaired the Standing Committee on Social Development, we produced a massive amount of research on the establishment of a Children's Commissioner, and that research is currently being used by other parliaments on the continent and globally, and it's being used in the work that the Commission is doing to also inform how the Commissioner engages with the National Department of Social Development to establish a national office. And then besides the work that we did, there's quite a lot of research that the Children's Institute at UCT did for the Department of the Premier leading up to the process. So it would be interesting to see how we do that. The follow-up would be, how do we manage that information? Because as a member at the moment in Parliament, there's nowhere except when I go to Miriam at the library where I get information. There's no online portal where you can search keywords and you access that. So if you're at a university, or if, let's use the city of Cape Town, for example, the city has an intranet. National Parliament also has an intranet where there's a research unit that you're able to go and you're able to find information. The city and the National Assembly also has access to all legislative and legal journals, for instance. So LexisNexis, for instance, is online. It's on the city's sort of database, etc. So are we looking at including that? And I think, yeah, the WITS LSS situation, I think we may, Chairperson, need a separate presentation on what that entails, because as it stands at the moment, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament is the only parliament that's not participating in the current cohort. So when we speak to our colleagues in the other legislatures, they've all started WITS already. And when we asked why we're not participating, even though we applied, we received offer letters from WITS, we were still, no, you have to reapply again for the next intake. So we will now apply in 2023, I think, is when you start. And I sort of said, you know what, it's a waste of time. I've spent more time applying for something. It's a year that's wasted already. And we had to do, I think, an entry-level course. You had to do a certificate before you could do the diploma. And for someone with an undergrad degree, I sort of also said this is a waste of time. So we might need to look at how do we position the types of training. So instead of it being a one-size-fits-all approach, which is what LSS is offering, members should be able to decide what works. And it should perhaps also be looked at sort of in terms of content areas. And then just in terms of the digest of rulings, I remember, and I might be mistaken here, but this is it's a long-standing issue, because if I remember from the annual report from 2021 and 2022, that was also an issue. So I'm not quite sure sort of what is going to be done differently. Is it now that there's more management intervention, or is it now a completely digital process where it's no longer a paper-based? Because I know in the 2021 financial year, and I might need to go just read the annual report, there was an issue around it wasn't printed on time. And then the decision was, the intervention was, it will now be circulated electronically. But now that it's being circulated electronically, now the rulings are not included. And then the other question around information as well. One of the complaints that I've received is that when we publish information on the website, we publish the ATC, but we only publish the first page. So when we publish an ATC, we'll say, let me just look at an example here. We'll say that we're publishing an ATC, which it's a provincial notice, and then we say at the end of it, copy attached. But we never actually attach the copy. So when members of the public ask for a piece of information, or a journalist asks for a question on something, then I tell them, oh, but it's on the website. And then they go, no, 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 it's not. Because when it's sent to members, we get the ATC and we get the attachments in our email. But I think when it's uploaded, that's not uploaded. And then I wanted to ask whether we can also change the WCPP's website. So instead of having abbreviations that's formatted in a specific taxonomy, so that's normally ATC, the date, and I think the document control number, can't we just put the title of the document? So if it's an ATC on membership, we say ATC on membership, or if it's a report on tabling the infrastructure report, that we call it that, so that when members of the public who don't understand internal WCPP jargon, when they search for it, they're able to see exactly what they're looking for, because the website does have a search function. But if it's not tagged correctly on the website, you're never going to find it. Thanks, Chairperson. That's all from me.
Thank you very much. WCPP, you want to respond to that?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Honourable Bosman, for those follow-up questions. I have made a note, and it is something that we have been speaking about for a while, for a research and legal repository that's searchable for the members. So I have made a note of that, and we will engage with the relevant director on that matter. Similarly, I have taken note of the issues with the website, with the ATC that doesn't have the full copy, and with the naming convention. I'll be taking that up with Mr. Retief and the website people. I understand what you're saying about the searchability for members of the public that doesn't quite understand. Then just to explain, and it's a pity that we have, kind of with the digestive ruling 2 years in a row an issue. The challenge that we had in the previous year that you referred to is that in terms of our target, we were to publish the directory of digestive rulings by the end of the 4th quarter. But it was only actually done the beginning of the 1st quarter of the following year, because it closes at the end of this financial year. So that was amended so that it is now published in the 1st quarter of the next year. And then this year, unfortunately, we had the issue of version control, which is what the intervention that Mr. Stimeli spoke about hopes to address. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on with the agenda. We're going to do the 4th quarterly financial statements now.
You, Chair, if I may.
Please continue.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sharing the 4th quarter I1 report as at 31st of March 2021-22. Just with regards to our budget of, or adjusted budget of 217,708,000 as at the end of March. Well, that budget also includes the direct charge of members' remuneration included in there as well. We spent an amount of 196,343,000, which is an effective spend of 90.19% of the budget. We effectively had a underspending for the year 2021-22 of 12.282 million. However, of that underspending of 12 million, we have identified that the reasons for that underspending is directly attributable to a couple of items, and the main one with regards to that is later or non-filling of vacant posts within the financial year, and then comes to about 3 million of that underspending. There had also been projects that was planned to be completed within the financial year, but could not be completed as at the end of financial year. However, orders has been created and those funds has been committed and carried over to this financial year for completion and payment. That came to about 4 million of that underspending. With regards to the rest of the underspending, there were high value items that was also planned to be spent within the financial year that could not be finalized. However, spending projects as well as plans to complete those projects in this current financial year has been identified. If I can maybe just name a few of those particular spending projects that led to part of that underspending from the previous financial year, it would be the purchase of laptops for staff for WCPP, training interventions which were planned to be completed in the previous financial year, which are now which has and is taking place in this current financial year, the completion of the corporate video, as well as the implementation of the Sage 300 project. With regards to program 1 of the budget of the budget of 73 million, adjusted budget of 74.126 million. we spent 65.196 million, which is a spend of 87 million. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, the main reason for that underspending is the filling of vacant posts. There's quite a few vacant posts that was filled during the year and still to be filled within this program. As well as, like I mentioned previously, there was committed funds in here that related to training costs, as well as the IT expenses, specifically with regards to the laptop refresh, the Sage 300, things like my mobile sound system, the portable PA system, which was planned as well, and as well as a cybersecurity project, which is now also planned to be completed in this financial year. And like I mentioned, the majority of those funds have been committed to be completed in this current financial year. With regard to program 2 of the adjusted budget of 22.8 million, we spent 22.1 million, which is a 96% or 97% spend on that. There again, the underspending there can be attributed to, again, some vacant posts. As we can see in stand committees, there is a bit slow expenditure there, and that was mainly due to the fact that in the previous financial year, there was no study visit that took place. That is in direct relation to the question earlier of the increased study visits or taking place in this current financial year. Then with regards to program 3, with regards to the adjusted budget of 13.6 million, we spent 12.6 million of that budget, which is a 92 or 93% spend. The main reason for the underspending in that particular program is specifically due to projects that were committed and not finalized within the financial year. If I can maybe just touch on the two main ones, and that would be the corporate video, which I mentioned previously, as well as a digital platform, which will now take place in this current financial year. Then with regards to program 4 of the adjusted budget of 59.1 million, we spent 57.5 million, which is a 97% spend there. And if I can just touch on again a few reasons for the underspending there, would be directly attributable to the members' allowances, which are claims, and that is demand driven as and when members do put in their claims. As well as if we look at specifically the constituency allowance, we'll see that there's not a close to 100% spend there, and that's mainly due to the fact that we align our budget for the constituency allowance to be exactly the same as that of National Parliament. National Parliament's increase for the previous financial year was less than what we budgeted for, so that basically resulted in the less than anticipated or the underspending that particular sub-program. Then, Chair, with regards to the last program, which is program 5, the direct charges, which is the members' remuneration, as we can see from the particular slide, of the adjusted budget of 97.997 million, we only spent or paid 38.9 million, which is 81% million. And the reason for that particularly was because of the fact that as of the 31st of March, the approved increase for members' salaries had not been approved as yet, and that is now currently been paid with a back paid in this current financial year, which was backdated to the previous financial year. However, as of the 31st of March, the increase was not approved, and that's the direct result of the 81% spent on that particular program. Thank you, Chair. And that's a summary of the IYM as of the fourth quarter.
Thank you very much. Members, you want to pause here and pose some questions?
Thank you, Chair. I'm good.
Thank you. Are we then moving on to point 4.3 on the agenda, the first quarter performance report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is going to be a brief one. So this is the first quarter's performance for 22-23, where we had a total of 26 performance indicators and targets for the new year. So for 22-23, of these, 5 were due to be achieved in the quarter, and all of them were achieved, which is an achievement level of 100%. The next couple of slides just reviews the actual achievements. So you will see this is again the breakdown by program, and you will see targets not achieved. There will be nothing, as the targets achieved amount to the 100%, which is 5. For program 1, we only had 1 target. It was in respect of the inspection report on one section of our work, which is plenary support, which was finalized by the end of the quarter. And it essentially identified issues around controls in plenary support. So what they did was to look at the standard operating procedures relating to plenary support, and then identify whether in fact those standard operating procedures incorporate all of the key processes in plenary that should be incorporated. So that was concluded. For program 2, again, all ATCs were published within the agreed timeframe. With regard to procedural related capacity building for members, a capacity building session was held. It was a session together with the AG where they briefed us on the roles and powers of the AG for enhanced oversight. When I say us, I mean primarily members. There were a few of our staff members also in attendance, but that was the procedure related capacity building that was achieved in the quarter. And then committee reports produced. Again, all committee reports were produced in line with the standard operating procedures for that area. And then capacity building for staff was also done in the quarter. And the capacity building specifically focused on the members facility guide and some of the changes and the implications for the committee support section that would have needed to be communicated to that section in order to operationalize some of those requirements. Chair, that concludes the report for quarter 1 of 22-23. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? My apologies. Any questions?
Chair,
No?
can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, please go.
For those of the members that are new here, that should be me. Just wanted to check how many capacity building reports how many capacity building engagements will there be for quarter 2, if it's possible?
Chairperson, can I respond?
Yes, please.
So one is planned for the quarter, but obviously it may not result in just one for the quarter.
Sorry, Chair, can I add on what my colleague has said? Also, currently we've already had a scheduled training that we're going to conduct, capacity building that we're going to conduct with the presiding officers. That will be more on the rules. So the idea was that also probably for that it will be beneficial for the 2 new members that have just joined recently. And then from there we see how do we then reinduct, members again. Because always when there are new members or a new member that has joined, we conduct an induction or sort of an orientation for those particular members. So probably within the quarter or on the 3rd quarter, we may bring that in so as also dependent on the availability of members and the activeness of the program itself, because we're also dependent with the office of the chief whip to schedule those within the programming authority, within the program of the parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no more questions, members, then I am moving on.
Chair.
And yes.
Apologies.
Is it the Deputy Speaker?
Yes. Can I just
please continue?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to mention some added exciting training that's going to be incorporated into the list, or say the basket of training opportunities for members and the administration. We're busy with the Hans Seidel Foundation. We have given them a draft proposal that they have taken to Germany for training opportunities, and we're waiting for that to come back. If being successful, we will then sign an agreement with the German Parliament when they visit here towards the end of the year. So the Commonwealth Parliamentary Academy has been launched. I'm sure you would have seen that in your inbox. There are a number of courses to which you can choose to study from there. Then we'll have the Hans Seidel opportunity, and we'll see how that will, what the crafting of training will be under that banner. And then, of course, our own internal training. And then, of course, we also open to wish lists. So I think in the end of the day, towards the end of this term, we'll have a real basket of choices that I think will help members and the administration a great deal in terms of training. Thank you very much.
Sound exciting. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Speaker, I hear you.
Thank you, Chairperson. The last point that the Deputy Speaker ended off with, I think it's very crucial for the honorable members, because we would never have a perfect vehicle for all members at all times. But it becomes necessary that the honorable members, as and when the need arises, you highlight that. And of course, because this is your parliament and it should serve the capacity building interest of members in order to do your job properly. Now, if there is a particular area through you, Chairperson, Honorable Fry, that you think you may have an interest in, ordinarily there are surveys that we send around. In fact, the current training that we're doing with us members, the King 4 and others, there's quite a few that I'm sure you may have seen. We've asked members to express interest, but it may not be limited to those because you might have something else. So please put it in writing and talk to the unit, to Mr. Titus directly. You can send that email to Mr. Titus or to myself or the Deputy Speaker. But I just want to make it as easier in terms of crafting a basket of interest, as the Deputy Speaker indicated, a wish list, that which we can see how we respond to that. But ultimately, we need a parliament of the 21st century that responds to the current demands as the world demands at the moment, because we cannot depend on the systems that were used yesterday, some of which respond to today's challenges, but some do not. And that is why we want to be guided by the members in assisting us to respond to the challenges that confront the members.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Members, I'm going to move on with the agenda. And I am with 4.4.
Thank you, Chair, if I may.
You might continue.
Thank you, Chair. The next presentation is regarding the first quarter IYM and expenditure report. So this is the expenditure against the budget for 2022-23 from April till June 2023. So of the original budget of 226,803,000, as at the end of June, we spent 49,648,000, which is effectively a 22% spend. As we can see, there could be an indication for slower spending, but the main reason as a whole for the first quarter is that there are still currently some vacant posts we are in the process of filling. Quite a few of those vacant posts have already been planned, or interviews have already been taking place, so we are in the process of filling those posts. However, as at the end of June, there would have been an underspending based on the fact that we had vacant posts, as well as the fact that as at the end of June, the ICS increases for 2022-23 has not yet been finalized. So once that is finalized, that obviously will be implemented from the 1st of April, but that expenditure will more than likely come through in the later quarters of the financial year. And then if I can call it the main reason for the slow expenditure in the first quarter, normally with political parties, secretarial and constituency allowances, we would pay those allowances in advance, but that is dependent on political parties submitting complete and accurate financial statements as at the 31st of May every year. However, as at the end of June, there was a couple of financial statements that we had picked up some questions we needed clarity on, and those financial statements could only be approved by the Secretary once all of those questions had been finalized. So the second quarter advance tranche could not be paid for some of the political parties. However, I can confirm that those have all been cleared now in the second quarter, and the first quarter as well as the second quarter advance tranches have been paid. With regards to the program 1, sorry, I just went 1 to 4. With regards to program 1 of the budget of 78.9 million, we spent 19 million, which is a 24% spend. The main reason for the slow expenditure there is basically for vacant post job we're trying to fill within the financial year, as well as some other expenditure which was planned for the first quarter but will take place now in the second quarter, which we are in the process of finalizing, or have finalized as well. With regards to program 2, with a budget of 23.8 million, we spent 5.7 million, which is a 24% spend in the first quarter. There again, if I can maybe just highlight one specific expenditure item which could possibly be standing out. If you look at standing committees, it's at 79% spend, and that's mainly because there was a study visit that took place, and that's a Brazil study visit. So that expenditure obviously does seem like it's more than what it would normally be. However, I can mention specifically that there is funds coming into that sub-program from rollover funds, particularly for the rest of the financial year, which has been approved and will be coming into that sub-program. With regards to program 3 of the 14.2 million, we spent 3.2 million, which is the 23% spend. There I can maybe just mention specifically with regards to the fact that the Tetanati projects has been taking place. So expenditure has come through in the first quarter for the Tetanati projects, as well as the fact that in stakeholder management, there's a couple of projects that has been planned for later in the financial year. So even though the percentage looks like it's only 21 or a little bit less than what it should be, there is projects planned later in the financial year. For example, the corporate video as well as the secretary report, which either is being planned or we can spend after the end of the first quarter. So we're on track with expenditure for that particular sub-program. Then with regards to program 4, of the 59.4 million spend, we've spent 11.9 million. And that's only a 20% spend. And if I can maybe just pause there and specifically mention that this is a sub-program or the program that is affected with regards to that secretarial and constituency allowances. Normally, as at the end of June, the secretarial and constituency allowance would be at 50%. However, the financial statements for a couple of the parties were only approved after June, and that expenditure was then paid now in the current second quarter. And then that expenditure will then be increased as at the end of the second quarter. With regards to program 5, this is again, like as I mentioned in the previous presentation, as at the end of June, and again, as at the end of June, the members' increase in the salaries was only approved and paid within this current second quarter. So as at the end of June, the percentage of the 50 million spend of budget is only 9.6 million. But we'll notice in the second quarter, there will be a spike in that percentage because the members' back pay has been implemented in this current second quarter. Thank you, Chair, and that's basically the summary of the first quarter.
Thank you, Mr. Jawuddin. Members?
Yes, Chair.
Please go ahead, Member Fry.
Thank you so much. I apologize. I don't know if the official covered this because I was struggling to hear for a little while. I wasn't online, so it's my hearing. But I just wanted to know, other than the vacancies that are meant to be filled this year, well, in the next quarters, is there seasonality in terms of spending, in terms of the reporting? Because we are 21% down on one quarter. If it keeps on going that way, then we're only going to be an 85% of spend. So I wanted to know if there's I know you covered some of that question in the program 5. But is there any other seasonality variances that we need to take into consideration? That's the question. Thank you much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Bosman?
I'm good, thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Just latching on to Member Fry, can you speak to the type of vacancies that we have that still needs to be filled? And then on your program 1, the legal services, is that external legal services? Thank you.
Chair, if I may. Chair, with regards to the first question regarding seasonality, our spending is basically, like I mentioned, the main expenditure that if I can call it seasonality is the fact that we do have that secretarial constituency allowance, but our spending is based on managers' projections for specific spending projects that they do have throughout the financial year, and that's based on their budget and spending plans or procurement plans at the beginning of the financial year. So even though simple arithmetic would say we need to spend 25% per quarter, as never that particular amount, because of the fact that we do have specific projects that could be high value projects planned for the end of the last quarter or even the third quarter. So we could get to the third quarter where we see we only have a 70% spend, but there is a very big project that's planned to be spent at the end of the year, which could bring that percentage up to the total spend. So I won't say we have seasonality expense, but our budget is very much driven by projects, as well as your normal monthly expenditure for invoices that comes through specifically for your run-of-the-mill, like for example, standing committee budgets for catering, etc., etc.
Thank you, Mr. John Woodin. If I may just add on to that, Honourable Fry, the financial management section is quite diligent in expenditure monitoring, and they have meetings with each and every sub-program on a monthly basis to track expenditure so that we are sure that within the financial year we do complete all the projects that we had budgeted for. Obviously, with things like salary increases, it happens later in the year with the constituency and secretarial where we have to wait for financial statements. There are some things that require a prompt for us to be able to action that expenditure. I'm going to ask Mr. Titus to just answer the question of the Honourable Chair on vacancies, and Advocate Leroux to maybe just speak on the question on legal services. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. There are, at the moment, we have 7 positions in active recruitment process. And we are then also, I can run down what those positions are and where they are in the process as well. And then we are also anticipating 2, maybe even 3 individuals who may be retiring soon. So we are also beginning with the recruitment process for those particular positions to try and preempt what the Honourable Fry had mentioned around the proactiveness around that particular process. So we're busy with that. And then there are 2 positions that we have decided will be part of an overall pool process. So the positions that are currently being recruited for is the Senior Officer in Project Management in the Office of the Secretary. There are 2 office administrator positions vacant and for which we are currently at shortlisting stage. There's a legal advisor position that is still vacant. That particular position at this point is at approval of shortlist stage. In people management, the Officer Talent and Learning and Development, that particular candidate, the process has been concluded. Candidate resumes duty on the 1st of September. An IT assistant position, the advertisement there is closed, so that is at the recruitment process, at the process of shortlisting. The IT digital officer position is being advertised. The NCOP liaison and plenary support, which has been vacant for a while, that is en route for approval for finalization and appointment. And yeah, and that is the lot. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Members, any follow-ups?
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, you still need to answer to that question. Thank you.
The legal services chair question, Chair.
Yes.
Just to answer the chair's question, yes, that there is a combination of both internal and external costs, but the reason for the slow expenditure from the actual presentation I made is the fact that there is also in that particular sub-program a vacancy candidate is in the process of being filled.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chair, follow-up very quickly. A comment?
Sure. Continue.
Thank you. I want to thank the officials for that deeglike antwoord, for that comprehensive answer. Yes, thank you. I'm just going to ask that I get a copy of the budget for 22-23 so that I can just see the seasonality for myself, you know, me being new and whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Fry. Is that in the questions? Can we move then on? I just get silent, so I'm saying we're moving on to
Mr. Skricker for his presentation on the electronic dashboard, Madam Chair.
Yes, that's 4.5 on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair, for me.
You may indeed, sir.
Chair, apologies for not being in the chamber. I flew, so I could not attend, and apologies for the technical glitch earlier on. What we have in front of us here is a screenshot of the Optimus system. It is an online platform which aligns with WCPP's vision of a paperless environment and the digitalization strategic objectives. As you can see, on the landing page, you will see that these are the 2022, 2023 indicators, and there are 26 of them. I'm going to briefly explain the benefits of the system, and within a minute, do a live demo of the Q1 of 22-23 indicators and the Q4 of 21-22 to show alignment with what was reported earlier on. In terms of the benefits of the system, and I'm not sure why my PC is hanging, there we go, of the system, it can interpret data and performance information rapidly, and it can be captured rapidly as well. It provides a performance dashboard that gives an overview of institutional performance and progress towards annual targets. It generates quarterly reports with a single click. You can filter on certain categories per sub-programs. It has workflow that allows managers and officials to interact with it when certain actions are required of them at a certain point in time. And it does accurate calculation and verification of performance results. What we see in front of you is a screenshot of what the dashboard looks like, and I will take you through a quick live demo. Like I said, it won't take long, of the system. So what we see here, the system allows you to access any of the strategic documents that any of the members may be interested in. It allows you to draw a quarterly report. It allows you this dashboard view on the right-hand side, and you can see that you can filter by financial year or by quarter by clicking any of these buttons. And at the bottom, you can roll down to a program level, and you could even double click the bar graphs to get the drill down from there. I'm just going to show how performance indicators are captured. This is the capture screen of the system for those that have never seen the system, and you can then capture specific performance indicators for any specific section or program. And there are also electronic sign-offs in the system, which is time and date stamped. This is what the automated quarterly performance report would look like. It looks very similar to the manual report that's being submitted. And at the bottom, you can see that this report was drawn at a certain point in time and by whom it was drawn. Chair, this system was initially rolled out or intended to be rolled out to the POC members, and it was done to all POC members. Member Allen and Member Wenger has since left. That means that we will immediately roll it out to the new members of the POC. All of the SMT has access to this dashboard, and a further rollout to members will require VPN access, and we do have a little bit of a constraint there. However, anyone that's on the LAN that connects to the LAN via wireless or via a cable will be able to access the system on request, and IT can certainly roll that out. If we get a list to prioritize, we should be able to roll it out within this month still. That is not a complicated task for us to do. The challenge is for remote access that we currently have. Chair, I will now go on to a basic demo of the system that will allow us to see how the system works in real life. So I've already logged onto the system, and I am now on the dashboard view of the system. What you will see that I'm currently on Q1, and it shows me that I'm in the 2022-23 financial year. And you can see that for Q1, there were 5 indicators. 1 was under program 1, 4 was under program 2, and then on the right-hand side, it shows the achievement that 1 was indeed achieved for quarter 1, and 4 for program 2 was indeed achieved. That can also be seen here on the bar graphs below, where orange shows the output and blue shows the target. And if there was any non-achievement, it would be a darker blue as indicated below in the legend. We can then drill down to a program level by clicking the program level button, and it should then clearly indicate to you, and I'm just going to drop that down, how many indicators, and indeed there was only one indicator for program 1 for 22-23. I'm just going to repeat the same thing so that members can see. If I now want to go to quarter 4 of 2021, I just click the button quarter 4, and I have there, you can see the date filter is already preset to 2021-22, what I've done earlier, and it immediately gives me a view of the performance for 21-22, which state there was for quarter 4, 27 indicators. For program 1, there was 9, 7 was achieved. For program 7, for program 2, there were 7 indicators and 5 was achieved. And if you want to then see what was not achieved for program 1, there was 2 not achieved, as you can see here. You just double click the 2 on the bar graph and it will drill down to you where there was non-performance for those indicators. So quite simple to then get the information at the tip of your fingers. This is again the landing page where when end users log in, they can capture the specific results. And then we do have the sign off of in the system where all signatures are recorded for audit purposes. As you can see, that then illustrates that this was electronically signed off by the SMT. Chair, that is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stryker. Any questions, members?
None from my side, Chairperson.
None from my side, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, Member Plato, nothing from your side?
Morning, Chair. Nothing from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stryker, you have mentioned that now that we are new members on the on this POC committee, you would take us through a almost workshop of this presentation. Do we give you a date?
That is correct, Chair. We will normally consider your availability and then we will make contact with you to do the presentation.
Okay,
and
thank
to
you.
the training. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so there are no questions in regard to that. We will pose more questions when we would get the workshop from you. Members, in regard to all the presentations that we were to have received, we did get all the briefings. Speaker, any closing remarks?
Honorable Chairperson,
Sorry, I'm missing one speaker. I'm so sorry. I'm missing 4.6 on the agenda. I'm so sorry. Before I get to you, 4.6.
the acting secretary can talk to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a presentation on that, Ms. Fouché?
No, not at all.
Okay, so you'll just talk us through.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In my handover meeting and discussions with the Secretary in preparation for the POC, the Secretary did indicate that there's a positive answer to the question on 4.6, but that no instruction was actually actioned. So that is what I was briefed on in terms of 4.6. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. O'Shea, can I just ask you to just repeat yourself on that?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Yes, as I indicated I personally didn't receive any instruction in terms of 4.6, but in my briefing with the Secretary in handover and in preparation for POC, he indicated that the answer to the question is yes, but that no instruction was actioned in terms of 4.6.
Thank you very much, Ms. O'Shea. Okay. Members, that then brings us to the end. Yes, Member Bosman, sorry.
If I can then maybe ask, so are we saying that there were no, maybe the question I should ask is, were there any incidents of financial misconduct reported for the last financial year in terms of Section 66? So that's the first question, because Ms. Fisher is saying there were no instructions issued, but I'm asking, were there any in the last financial year? And then the second question I have, it's a more general question. I'm not sure whether it covers FAMPLA, but it's around delegated authority. How does the system work in Parliament? So we've got an acting secretary at the moment. And I noticed at our last sitting, we had an acting secretary. I think the secretary was in, I don't know where, the secretary was in I think in Denver. But during the sitting, we also had the secretary online. So I'm just trying to understand how delegated authority works within Parliament. From my local government background, the system of delegations dictates that if someone has the delegated authority to make decisions, that person is then at work and the other person is not. So how does that work just in terms of the lines of reporting? So does the acting secretary have all of the powers of that functionary, or is it still signed off by the secretary, for instance? So if Mr. Bashir makes a decision, that decision still goes to the secretary, depending on where in the world he is. Thanks, Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, you can respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask Ms. Peterson to speak on any financial misconduct in the last year, but I'm just going to quickly deal with the issue of delegated authority. In terms of the letter of acting appointment, the actee or the acting official takes on all the responsibility in terms of being the accounting officer, in terms of FAMPLA, as well as being the chief procedural officer and the principal administrator for the WCPP. I think what often happens when the secretary is away but can connect, for interest sake and for keeping on top of what is happening, the secretary likes to sign in and be in the background, but also maybe if for more information is needed that the acting secretary does not necessarily have in his or her possession to assist the acting secretary to carry out his or her roles and responsibilities properly. But all the authority is delegated in terms of the appointment letter. Ms. Peterson?
Okay, through you, there have been no findings of any financial misconduct within the last year now.
Thank you very much. Member Bosman, is that good enough for you?
Thank you very much. Very good for me, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay. Then Speaker, I'm back to you. Any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair and the honorable members. I just want to appreciate the spirit within which the meeting took place, that you hold us to account and you do it robustly and of course without fear or favor. And that is the spirit within which we want this committee to do its business, in terms of us having that responsibility to account. And we don't expect any favors and no special treatment. So we appreciate that. But I also want to say, Honorable Chairperson, I know you've been in the environment for a period of, for a while now, and it will be important from time to time to look at the areas of interest for members where you want us to provide more information, and of course where you want us to provide more capacity building, where you could specifically request those opportunities instead of us suggesting them to you. And I think that is also in line with what I raised with the Honorable Fryer earlier, because we want to really be more practical. This is your parliament and it is not us and them. So we are in the same space. We want to make sure that this environment works for all of us. And that's why even the oversight that we conducted earlier, the walkabout, some of the things that we picked up, which we also spoke about in terms of the maintenance of this building, those are issues that we must not shy away from raising, even in other committees as well. But we appreciate this relationship, and we can only hope to continue and sustaining it the way it is. Thank you very much, and good luck with your business, Chair and the members of this committee. Thank you to the Deputy Speaker and to the SMT senior managers, and of course, to everyone who works for this parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I also just want to say thank you to you and the Deputy Speaker and your senior management team for availing yourselves to have joined us in this standing committee meeting, or in this committee meeting. I want to say to you thank you, and please go well. You will leave the chamber now and the virtual platform, while the members of this committee will then do the recommendations or resolutions regarding today's meeting. So thank you very much. Members, it seems that we can continue now, that the parliamentary staff has left us. I just want to do the adoption of the quarterly performance report. In regard to the fourth quarterly performance report, members, do I have a mover and a shaker to adopt, to propose and to adopt, or to adopt and to second?
Yeah, I propose that we adopt the quarterly report.
Thank you very much, members Bosman and Plato. Thank you very much for that. Okay, then in regard to recommendations of this? Oh, do I still need to read the whole thing? Members, in regard to the committee report, the report of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee having considered the quarterly financial and performance information for the fourth quarter of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament for the 2021-22 financial year, as well as the first quarter of the 22-23 financial year, report as follows. The Parliamentary Oversight Committee reports that it convened on 17 August 2022 and has concluded its deliberations on the quarterly financial and performance information for the fourth quarter of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament for the 21-22 financial year, as well as the first quarter of the 22-23 financial year, which was referred to it in terms of Standing Rule 89.1 of the WCPP. The committee interrogated the WCPP in terms of the information that was tabled and referred to the committee as legislated under Section 17(2)(a) of the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislature Act 2009. In accordance with Section 37(6) and 66(2) of the FAMPLA, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament reported to the committee that no instructions were issued during the fourth quarter of the 21-22 financial year and the first quarter of the 22-23 financial year for the WCPP. The committee considered and adopted this report at its meeting on 17 August 2022. So members, thank you, Member Bosman and Member Plater, to have adopted and seconded on the report. Thank you. Members, any recommendations from the meeting of this morning and all the presentations that we have received?
Yes,
Member
Chairperson.
Bosman?
From my side, if we could have the international relations framework document tabled, as well as the public education and outreach annual plan tabled as well. And then, Chair, I might need your guidance on this. I'm not sure if we're allowed to make this kind of resolution, but I'm wanting the Parliamentary Oversight Committee to resolve that all parliamentary meetings, not just meetings of committees and of the House, but all meetings that involve members of Parliament should be sent to the Programming Authority for approval by the Programming Authority. So it shouldn't go to the Programming Authority just for noting as it is at the moment, but it should be approved by the Programming Authority in line with the program for Parliament. So I'm not sure if that's in order. And then, Chair, if I could also ask that Parliament gets a quarterly update on the progress that Public Works is going to be making on the repair of all the toilets in the WCPP. During our walkabout, we looked at some of the facilities and Public Works indicated that they are busy with a refurb that's currently out for tender to repair all the broken and dilapidated toilets in the building. And then as one of our next committee items, Chair, is if we do a walkabout on these, what's the word? The state of the parliamentary building. If you were here, Chair, you would have noticed that when we walked on the 6th floor, everything was beautiful and shiny and the carpets are clean. But as soon as you go to the 4th and the 5th floor, the carpets are broken, dirty. The sort of building just looks in complete disarray. And if you go into the ANC offices, I'm not sure, and this is maybe why Member Lekker is not here, there seems to be a hole in the ground in the ANC administrative offices. Apparently there was a leak quite a while ago and it hasn't been repaired. So if we could look at the facility itself, the precinct of Parliament, and get an update on that. From what we heard, there seems to be a service level agreement that is in place, but there's no regular repair schedule. So one of the questions we ask is how often the carpets get cleaned, and the response was never, only on the 6th floor. So looking at that, and I think that briefing or that walkabout should specifically also look at the working environment of parliamentary staff, specifically our committee section and where our committee, our procedural officers work as well. That section does not even have a break room or a sort of an area for committee support staff to relax and to eat. And then if we could also get a list of any policy deviations that were signed off by the speaker in the past financial year and also for this quarter, and then a briefing on the members' facilities guide specifically, and then a briefing on capacity building for members, and specifically also on how what capacity building is available through the legislative support sector and how that works. And then in line with the presentation made by Mr. Skripke on the dashboard for processing annual reports, if we can then get a demonstration of all electronic systems available to members, so members being able to submit claims online, members also being able to see their pay slips online, and also accessing of committee documents online. Because it's nice that the annual report is digitized and there's a paperless system, but all committee work still either comes via email. So if we can get sort of an idea of how that SharePoint service works, if I remember my first parliamentary meeting, we received a briefing to say that there was a PwC report and there were things being actioned out of that report, and quite a lot of money was spent on building this new system. So if we can get an update on that. I think I'm covered. I've made quite a few, so I think I'm going to stop there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. You almost leave none for us. You covered it all. Member Fry, anything from your side?
No, Honourable Bosman covered me. Thank
You
you.
covered by Member Bosman. Okay. Then Member Plato.
Chair, I'm also covered. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to say on your first recommendation, I want to add that it sort of follows the same route as if a committee would request a time slot in the program. So I just want to add that little bit. Otherwise, you've covered me as well. Then we have some minutes. Can I step off recommendations? We have some minutes. Now, in regard to this minutes, what is tricky is that only Member Bosman remains of the members that served the POC before. Ms. Adams, if I'm correct?
Yes, Chairperson, that is correct, but it is minutes of the committee, so we can proceed with the adoption.
Okay, all right. Members, then I take it that you have gone through the minutes. I cannot yay or nay it, as I was not privy to it, to being part of the committee. Member Bosman, we're relying on you to propose to adopt.
Thanks, Chairperson. I can yay it. It was just the adoption of the budget. That was the budget meeting on the 22nd of March. So I propose that the committee adopts the minutes for the 22nd of March.
Thank you very much.
And Member Plato can second me because Member Plato was in that meeting as well.
Okay, all right. Member Plato, then we take it for granted that you are seconding.
Chair, you may take it for granted.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The annual activities report, can you flag that?
Chair, I
Yes.
also I propose that we also adopt the
Follow
annual
the same
activities
route.
report.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And then the tracking document.
again, Chair, I propose that we adopt. But just with a note that we just need to send the documentation that was requested in the last meeting as part of that, one of the resolutions to all members as well. It was quite a long list of documents that we requested, but I can also send those because I've got them in my email.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Shall we then rely on you to send it to us?
Yes, Chairperson. Sorry, I spoke without switching on my mic.
Oh, okay. But I heard you. So thank you very much for that. Then, Ms. Adams, that then brings us to the end of our agenda for today.
Just a second, Chair.
Does it?
If I may.
Yes.
Yeah, look, my apologies for being late. There was a complete misunderstanding between myself and Magloria with standing in for her and that sort of thing. I apologize for the misunderstanding. It's a case of not so proper communication after all.
Okay.
We will have to sort that out, but I will have an offline discussion with you in your capacity as chair and today and as chief whip about that.
Okay, all right.
Thank you
that
so
is
much,
fine.
Chair.
Thank you very much. We can have that conversation. Now we have the quarterly financial and performance report for consideration.
You've already adopted that report.
Oh, what report is now this on the screen?
Sorry, Chairperson, it's Lizette. We've adopted that report. Apologies.
Oh, sorry, you're confusing me. Thank you very much, Ms. Kluter, for that confusion. Members, I want to say to Member Plato, I'm taking that into consideration, but we will have a conversation as you have requested hereafter. Ms. Adams is not normally the procedural officer for this committee, but Mr. Dustin Davids is in Durban with some members on the APAC conference. So hence she has so diligently agreed to so very much. And thank you for the logistics that went with us. You can come back to POC anytime after today. And then Ms. Lizette Kluter, as always, it's nice to be back in your sphere again after a long time. So thank you very much. And then members, thank you very much for having been in this POC meeting. It is my first, Member Fry's first, and not Member Plata's first, neither Member Bosman, but they will guide us as we go along. So thank you very much. This Parliamentary Oversight Committee meeting is now adjourned. Go well and keep safe.
Thank you, Chairperson. We hope